Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. I would first just like to welcome, we have several interns today in the back from DRL who are here today as observers. So welcome to all of you. With that, let's get to, and I should also mention there's a bilateral meeting, as all of you know, with the Qataris at 2 o'clock. So let's try to get through all the topics as quickly as we can. Go ahead, Matt.
All right. Well, I wanted to start with Ukraine, but in fact,
Sure.
the White House has just changed my mind because they've just said that you're not going to give a visa to the Iranian ambassadorial nominee, and I'm wondering if you can expand on that at all.
Well, I can also confirm, of course, that we have informed the United Nations and the government of Iran that we will not issue a visa to Mr. Abu Talabi. I don't believe I can expand out much more, but go ahead.
Well, when did you tell them?
I'm not going to get into details of that. Obviously, these discussions have been ongoing.
How is that? Yeah, I'm sorry. How is that? Why is that some kind of sensitive bit of information?
In terms of what?
When?
Why when?
When did you tell them?
Well, these discussions with the Iranians and with the UN have been ongoing. I'm just not going to detail the timeline.
Well, you didn't say that you wouldn't do this yesterday, so should we assume that it happened either yesterday afternoon, sometime after your briefing, or prior to the White House briefing just now?
I wouldn't make assumptions about the timing. I'm confirming the facts here.
Did you
and
give them
that's
a
where we
reason?
stand. We've been very clear that with the Iranians that this nomination is not viable. So there's been no secret of that. But I think they understand what the reasons are.
Did you give them a reason why his nomination is not viable?
Certainly, we've had discussions with them about the reasons for why it's not a viable nomination.
What is the reason, for the record, now that you've denied him a visa? Or have you actually denied the visa, or have you simply asserted to them that you would deny it or will
We've
deny
made
it?
clear to them that we will not issue a visa.
But this may sound like a distinction without a difference.
No, I understand your
it's
question.
not,
I'm
yeah.
not going to detail it. I'm not going to outline it further.
So you won't say whether or not you actually denied it?
No, I will not, no.
Why not?
Because I'm not going to.
And why, and, well,
Okay, then.
because, yeah, well, why, I know we've discussed this here a great deal. For the record, now that you have informed the Iranians that you will not issue a visa to Mr. Abu Talabi, why is his nomination unviable? What are the main issues that came up here?
I'm not going to speak to that from the podium, Arshad. Obviously, we've confirmed what we've conveyed, which is that we will not issue a visa. It doesn't change the fact that details of visa cases, including the reasons, which gets to your last question prior to this, are not issues that we can talk about publicly for legal reasons.
So here's a question then. How can you announce that you won't give him a visa if visa applications are entirely confidential? Isn't it to say we're not going to do this, doesn't that impinge on the confidentiality of the process?
We've conveyed. I'm conveying what we have communicated to the Iranians, and that's what I'm communicating to all of you
Judge
today.
Blanchard, you said earlier this week, I believe, that there were a couple of categories where there was a limited exception to the general rule that as a host nation you should be granted visas. They included security, terrorism-related matters, and foreign policy concerns. Should we assume that this application fell within one of those three categories at least?
Obviously, all of these issues are looked at by our legal teams, but I'm not going to give a specific reasoning.
All right. So, understanding that you're not going to give a specific reason, you can say, though, that the Iranians have been told why you believe his nomination is not viable. Is that correct?
Well, throughout
it is not a secret to them why you're saying no, we're not going to issue the visa.
It should not be no, but as a reminder, Matt,
Right.
we've also communicated that it's not viable
Gotcha.
as well,
Right,
prior to
right, but
the news I'm
they are
confirming
aware
today.
of they are aware of the reasons why you can see. Even if you're not going to tell us, they know why.
I don't think there should be any
All right, and
mystery
then you
to
said
them
that
about
details of did this actually rise to the level of a visa case?
And can you just expand on that
Well,
question?
you said details of visa cases are confidential, but if this didn't actually rise to the level of there being an application that was actually considered, then how is it a visa case?
Well, we've all seen the media reports, or many of us have seen the media reports, that the government of Iran has stated that a visa application was submitted to the U.S. government. As I've noted, U.S. law generally prohibits us from commenting on details of visa cases, but I would not dispute
Right.
that statement.
Unless, okay, so they did submit the application according to, and you said, and I guess that, I realize it's a detail, and it's, but did you actually stamp no on the application, or did you just say, we're not gonna take any action on this?
I'm not going to get into any greater level of
Is it
detail.
also not the case that usually if a visa, someone who is denied a visa speaks out about the reasons publicly and speaks out about a denial, that you will discuss, or you can discuss? You are no longer bound by the...
That has
is that
happened
correct?
in the past.
So we should ask the failed nominee to speak about this and then get back to you, and then come back to you, and you should be able to enlighten us all, right?
Well, I'm happy to keep continuing the discussion. Go ahead.
That your decision to tell the Iranians that you will not give him a visa to enter the United States will harm, has harmed, or will harm the P5+1 negotiations with Iran about their nuclear program?
No, we do not. And obviously, our team was on the ground this week, as you know, negotiating through the P5+1 process. And our team did not find that this ongoing discussion in the public impacted those negotiations.
And why do you think it won't harm them going forward? I mean, it's a rejection of their choice. Presumably that will upset them to some degree. Why won't that? Why do you think that won't have an effect going
Well, I
forward?
can't analyze what will or won't impact their own views, but obviously they're engaged in these negotiations because they have their own reasons for that, including the impact of sanctions and their desire to deliver on President Rouhani's promise he ran on.
So I said has or will have, and you said no. Did you mean no, it has had no effect, and no, it will have no effect, or did you mean no, it has had no effect?
It has not, and we don't anticipate it.
Can I ask?
So let's just do one at a time.
So-
Go ahead, Joe.
Sorry. Have you asked the Iranians to put forward another nomination? And presumably it's not your intention that Iran should operate without a representative at the United Nations.
I didn't say that was our intention. I'm not aware of that level of detail. But again, we've been pretty clear even before today that this nomination wasn't viable, and obviously there could have been an alternative.
You would welcome an alternative name being put
Well,
forward?
there have been, just historically, a range of individuals who have represented the Iranians in the UN. So I would point you to that.
And just as a matter of historical precedent, do you know if this is the first time that you've actually turned down a...
I'm not going to get into historical precedent from
You
the
won't
podium.
tell us from the podium?
No, I'm not. Go ahead.
Did you
Iran?
mean that, yes. Did you mean that you conveyed the denial to the Iranians before the negotiations? That's why it didn't affect the
I
negotiations?
didn't. No, I wasn't indicating that at all. We've over the last couple of days, as you know. Pardon me. Sorry, microphone. We've stated that we've conveyed it's not a viable nomination. Obviously, that conversation has been happening publicly while the negotiations were happening. So our negotiators were clear on the ground, and I've spoken with them as well, and they don't feel there was an impact. Go ahead, Iran or Iran? Okay.
Did your or is your decision was related to the unanimous vote in the Congress in a way that hey, we are obliged to because we don't have another exit for it? Was it connected to the vote in Congress to deny the visa for this ambassador?
Well, the votes in Congress certainly underscore how troubling this potential nomination would be, and we share those concerns. But obviously, there's an ongoing process internally in the federal government as well. Go ahead.
Did the Undersecretary Sherman raise this issue with the Iranians in Vienna?
I'm not going to go into more detail about what channel it was raised through. We have more on Iran?
If we don't, can I go to Ukraine?
Sure.
Sorry, I have
Oh, or what? Sure, go ahead.
Just to close out that topic. The International Energy Agency today released its report on Iranian crude oil exports from the month of February. Those figures show that it exported on average 1.65 million barrels per day during the month of February. As you'll recall, the fact sheet that the White House put out said that your target was to keep Iran to 1 million barrels per day under the JPOA. How are you going to keep them under 1 million barrels per day if in the first month after the JPOA took effect, right, on January 20th, they're already at 1.65?
Well, as you know, Arshad, but just for everybody, the current average amounts of crude oil refers to the average volume over a 6-month period. It's not referring to one specific month. So month-to-month variability is normal in oil markets, and we expect, and we still expect, and anticipate that the average over that this will average out over a 6-month period.
To 1 million.
To meeting the bar that was set in the JPOA.
In the JPOA or in the White House fact sheet? I'm sorry to interrupt. The JPOA doesn't actually specify a number, but the White House fact sheet does, which is 1 million barrels per day. So that is what I think is the marker.
Specified in the JPOA
Yeah.
is that the United States will pause efforts to further reduce Iran's crude oil sales, which allows current customers to purchase their current average amounts of crude oil, and those averages are looked at over a 6-month period. We have nothing to dispute what was either in the White House fact sheet or the JPOA. We are still anticipating on meeting everything that was laid out specifically.
And just so I'm clear, so your target, I mean, since it came from the White House, it's clearly administration
Correct.
policy. So your target is that over the 6-month period, beginning when? Beginning November 24th or beginning
January 20th.
That Iran's oil exports must be held to an average over that 180-some day period of 1 million per day.
What was in the White House fact sheet still stands, yes. Let me just outline for you a couple of reasons why these monthly numbers have recently looked high. Iran's contributions to Syria are part of what drives up numbers cited on exports. What's important to keep in mind here is that Iran does not get revenue from this oil. So oftentimes you see those numbers, but that's not reflected in the revenue Iran is receiving. And that's part of the numbers as well. Also, there are variations in month-to-month numbers because of seasonality. And, of course, the numbers you're referring to are February numbers. Winter is traditionally a peak period. So that is often reflected in how high the oil numbers are. And finally, and this is more of a technical piece, but still relevant for those close followers of these issues, export figures often mix condensates and crude oil, which often creates inconsistencies in the way numbers are reported. And what matters as it relates to implementation of the JPOA and the accompanying fact sheet is the crude oil numbers. So we look at all of these factors as we look at what the average are over the 6-month period.
How do you know that they don't get any money for the stuff that they send to Syria?
How do we know?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into greater detail.
Are you 100% confident that they're not getting anything, either in revenue in cash or in kind?
I wouldn't be saying it if we weren't confident, but I'm not going to put a percentage. Do we have any more in Iran?
One more on this.
Sure.
The OFAC guidance on the JPOA implementation makes very clear that it's in the sort of frequently asked questions that any transactions that are now permitted that were not previously permitted must be initiated and completed within the 6-month period. In other words, you can't agree to sell them something on July 13th and close the deal on July 21st. Is there, therefore, a propensity for oil buyers to try to make their purchases and pay for them earlier in the cycle rather than later? In other words, is there any possibility that India,
That
China,
individuals would be buying a lot in February
Right, that they're
in
front-load-
anticipation of later months?
that they're front-loading it, exactly. Do you think that's a reason for this?
That's not one that I understand from our team. I will ask them if that's something that we're watching closely.
Thank you.
Sure. Iran?
On the secretary's meeting with the foreign minister of Qatar. Mm-hmm. What's on the agenda for this meeting?
Well, I expect they'll talk about a range of issues that we work together on, including the ongoing crisis in Syria, including the ongoing negotiations between the Israelis and Palestinians, and I'm sure we can put a readout out after
And
the
the
meeting.
secretary met the Emir of Qatar during his visit to Algeria. Was that a coincidence or pre-planned?
He happened to be in Algeria, and so there was a discussion about whether it made sense to have a meeting, and we agreed it did.
Is the secretary trying to improve relations between Qatar and the Saudis?
No, we work closely. Look, of course, discussions about the best ways to ease any tensions in the region can come up in these discussions, but we work closely, as you know, with the Qataris on a range of global issues.
You work to ease tensions in the region. There is a report today, the ambassador of Iran in Beirut, he said Iran's relation with the Saudis is getting improving, and this will have an impact on the region. Did the secretary try to urge the Saudis to receive the foreign minister of Iran to visit Saudi Arabia? Or
Well,
to
the
improve?
meeting that the secretary most recently attended with the Saudis was one led by President Obama and King Abdullah, and they, of course, were the leaders of the discussion. I'm not aware that this came up, that issue came up at the meeting, and I'd point you to the White House for more clarification on that.
Ukraine?
Ukraine. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff coming out of the Kremlin and out of the Russian Foreign Ministry today, some of which is kind of, I don't know, fluffy. Let's
Fluffy.
start with some of it is not.
Okay.
Let's start with the with the more jovial parts of it, perhaps. President Putin has accused you of peeping on his correspondence with the Europeans, and you specifically making
Me
comments.
personally?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Peeping Jen, apparently, is what.
Okay. I haven't seen those reports.
Right. Well, and apparently in a meeting with Foreign Minister Lavrov, he made these comments. He said that it's not unusual for the United States to eavesdrop. Everyone knows they do it. But this letter that was sent to the Europeans wasn't addressed to you, the United States, and therefore you shouldn't have read it and or commented on it. I'm wondering if you have any response to that.
Well,
Pointing out that it was, of course, published online and in English.
I was going to get to that next,
Okay.
Matt.
Go ahead.
Naturally, this was a letter that pertained to access to oil for the government of Ukraine and the people of Ukraine, and helping the people of Ukraine through this difficult period, helping them have the economic assistance they need, the resources they need. It's no secret that's a priority to the United States. So I certainly don't think it's out of any line for us to comment on concerns we have about efforts to thwart that.
Right, but you don't regard this as some kind of rude invasion of the Russian president's privacy.
I think commenting on a public letter is hardly an invasion of privacy.
Okay, so you're aware of former Secretary of State Stimson's comment about gentlemen don't read each other's mail. This does not apply in that case.
There are a range of public correspondence out there that that individuals across the
Gotcha.
world comment on.
Okay, now, apart from that, Foreign Minister Lavrov had a meeting with some NGOs. Unclear to me whether they were Russian NGOs, because I don't know if there are any NGOs left in Russia anymore, but in which he made a series of comments about how active Russian engagement in Europe has always resulted in stronger European economies and growth. Do you agree with that statement?
Statistically, Matt, I don't have any data to back that up or refute it in front of me, obviously. But I will say that Russia's exports, if you look at oil to Europe, are much more beneficial to Russia, and they're much more dependent on them than most European countries. So I'm not sure what those comments are based on.
Another thing he said was that Russian participation or Russian cooperation with NGOs has been critical to understanding I can't remember the exact words he used, but something like critical to understanding the civil society is a very important part of understanding what things are going on politically and foreign policy wise. Given Russia's actions, the Russian government's actions against NGOs, what do you make of a comment like that?
I think there are more lessons and more studying that can be done about what civil society is trying to teach if they're saying they learned from them.
That they need more.
Right.
Can I just ask, since we're on Ukraine, whether everybody had managed to square up their schedules yet, or whether you have anything to announce on the meeting?
I hope to later this afternoon, and I will just convey to all of you that we're coordinating between several governments on content and timing and specifics, and that is the delay, not anything else.
It's not over the name.
I think your name is maybe in consideration, Matt.
Really? It is? Is there a prize? The
Quad.
tetrad? No, the tetrad. The tetrad.
There's a range of
Claude
just
is shorter.
stay at your emails. We'll see. You'll see what the name will be.
I think Cayman should do a contest on this.
I think there should be a prize.
A Friday afternoon contest, perhaps.
And Joe,
Oh, go ahead, Nicholas.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
do you have something on Joe's question yesterday on where you are in terms of loan guarantee and the money which has been allocated for
Yes, it was a very
2013
good
and-
question, and we've been working through the interagency since yesterday when I promised to get you something to kind of do a comprehensive list of all of the coordination. It's just took a little bit longer, but we hope to have something this afternoon.
And then on the more serious parts of the
Yes.
Of what was coming out of Moscow today, they continue to insist that the buildup of troops on the Ukrainian border is nothing unusual and don't worry about it, nothing to see here. Have you or NATO? NATO is presenting these satellite images that show the buildup. Have you now, and I asked this question yesterday, have you now seen any diminution in either that buildup or the provocations that Toria and others have spoken about over the course of the past few days in the east of Ukraine?
Look, we have remaining concerns about the troop buildup. I'm not aware of a change in the troop buildup or the tens of thousands of troops that we've been speaking about over the past couple of weeks. So, we don't view that as a military exercise preparation or as one that is just business as usual, and we have the same concerns we've had.
Jen, Russia has cut off Voice of America radio transmissions in Moscow by refusing to renew an AM broadcasting license for VOA. Do you have any reaction to that?
I do. We condemn the Russian government's recent decision to block continued Voice of America broadcasting in Russia. In the last year, the Russian government has passed laws imposing unprecedented censorship and restrictions on media and online publications. In the past few months alone, it has blocked independent websites and blogs, turned wire services into a propaganda tool, denied visas and accreditation to foreign journalists, and forced leadership changes at several media outlets that dare to challenge Kremlin politics. We support the rights of all people, including Russians, to exercise their right to free speech, regardless of their political views. This right is enshrined in the Russian Constitution, as well as in international agreements to which Russia is a party. In recent months, Russia has spoken out to defend free speech in other countries. We call on them now to drop this obvious double standard and allow the same access to information for their people that it insists other nations provide.
Will there be any reciprocal action from your part? We know that Russia has media outlets working in the United States.
No, I think we, as a country that respects freedom of speech, that respects the rights of media, I don't think that would be a particularly effective tool.
And how will you react to this?
I think I just reacted to it.
Only by condemning this action?
That's correct. Russia?
Yes. Did Secretary Kerry speak with Foreign Minister Lavrov today?
He did. It was just before I came down for the briefing. They spoke this morning. I don't have any readout of that at this point, but we'll venture to get you one after this afternoon.
Okay. The Russian Foreign Ministry is saying that Lavrov was trying to convince Kerry to use his influence on the Ukrainian government to not forcibly remove the protesters in the east.
Well, I think we've seen what's been happening in the ground, and the Ukrainian government has exercised remarkable restraint throughout the last several weeks. Prime Minister Yatsenyuk And I should also mention that the Secretary also spoke with Prime Minister Yatsenyuk, but all of this happened sort of right before I came out here for the briefing. But Prime Minister Yatsenyuk and other Ukrainian government officials visited Donetsk yesterday to speak to citizens of eastern Ukraine to address the current situation and constitutional reform. This is another sign that the interim government of Ukraine is taking positive steps to be inclusive and receptive. We have not seen evidence of what the foreign minister or others are referring to in terms of incursions or aggressive actions by the Ukrainian government. Quite the contrary.
I've got one more on Russia. It's unrelated to Ukraine. Well, maybe it's unrelated to Ukraine. I'm wondering if you've seen this column written in a Russian newspaper by your favorite deputy prime minister, Mr. Rogozin, which talks about Russia's space program and the need to colonize the moon. And I'm wondering if you're concerned at all that Russia may try to annex the moon.
I have not seen that column, though it does sound interesting, Matt. I will talk to our team and see if we have any views on it.
I just wondered if you managed to glean any more details about this suggestion to help yourself to gas, the idea that you would reverse the gas flows back into Ukraine. I understand once the gas is in the European part of the pipeline, it's considered to be Europe's gas. But do you have any more details about the kind of which pipeline we're talking about? Because there's several.
Sure, you're right. There
which
are.
Company and
It's all part of the discussion. It's a little preliminary in terms of those details. You are right that once gas enters Germany, then it's Germany's gas to give, and that's obviously what the discussion is about.
But you haven't got any more details about how, when.
Not at
Who
this
would
point.
do this?
Not at this point. This is just one of the pieces that is being discussed and considered in terms of ways to help the people of Ukraine.
Cuba?
Sure. Do we have any more in Ukraine? Or okay, Cuba. Go ahead.
Yeah, the French foreign minister will be in Cuba tomorrow. This is the first time for more than 30 years. Is it a good thing, according to the United States?
I think I spoke to this a couple of weeks ago when the trip.
It was not confirmed.
Sure, when the trip was announced, obviously every government makes their decisions about who they have relations with and where they visit, and we certainly respect that. We do ask countries around the world, including France, to raise issues that we share concerns about, whether it's freedom of media and speech or human rights issues. And we'll see if this is one of the issues that the Secretary discusses when he next sees the Foreign Minister.
Do you know if he's going to raise the issue of Alan Gross at all? Is that something you've asked him to do?
I'm not aware of a recent discussion about this particular issue, but broadly speaking, we certainly do ask foreign counterparts, including the French, including a range of our allies, to raise that issue and the importance of returning Alan Gross to his family.
On Cuba more broadly, do you is there an answer yet from either you or AID as to these apparently political texts/tweets?
There's nothing new, and what I was trying to convey yesterday was that Administrator Shah, in answer to a question yesterday, he conveyed a desire to look broadly at the program, including the text messages, and so I suspect they'll take the time to do that before further evaluation.
Do you know
publicly.
that then should we expect an answer from AID or from here?
I
Once there is-
suspect I suspect AID, and we can certainly discuss it as well. But they're taking a broader look beyond the text messages.
Peace process?
Sure.
Any update on the negotiations between the two parties? Any agreement has been achieved? Or not?
I don't have any update. I mentioned yesterday that Ambassador Indyk is returning. He's returning today. I understand he'll be back in the United States later this evening. I don't have any travel updates for you. So we'll continue that discussion next week.
How about Israeli decision to suspend the transfer of tax revenue to the PA? Anything
Well,
on that?
we've seen these press reports, but we have not seen an official public announcement by the government of Israel. So it's we're not in a position to confirm either the specifics or the details that have been reported. That said, we would regard such a development as unfortunate. We believe that the regular transfer of the Palestinian Authority's tax revenues and economic cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian Authority has been beneficial and is important to the well-being of the Palestinian economy.
Do you regard the transfer of money as something that the Israelis are obligated to do under Oslo or post-Oslo, any post-Oslo agreements, or is this kind of a privilege that the Israelis can suspend or put back into place kind of at will?
It's a good technical question, Matt. I'm not sure what our team views it as, whether it's obligation or just something we think is useful and unhelpful to stop. So let me talk to them and see if we can
Well, I mean,
clarify
it's
that
more than
further.
just useful. They can barely pay their salaries of their people
Right,
as it is.
as I
so
said,
it's-
it would be unfortunate if that were, if those
Do
reports
you
are
think
true.
there'd be any, if this is the case, would there be any move, do you think, within the US to fill in the gap, or even temporarily, and then financially, I mean?
I'm not aware of a discussion of that. Do we have more on the peace process or another topic? Go ahead. Okay.
Do you have a travel update for Ambassador Glenn Davies?
Let me see if I have anything on that. If not, I will see what we have in the pipeline in terms of travel announcements. Let's see. Okay, I do. Let's see. Special Representative for North Korea Policy Glenn Davies will host bilateral meetings in New York, April 14th and 15th, and Washington, April 17th, with his Chinese counterpart, Wu Dawei. I think we just sent this out this morning to exchange views on a wide range of issues related to the DPRK. Special Representative Wu's visit is part of a series of high-level, in-depth U.S.-China discussions on how to achieve our shared goal of a denuclearized North Korea in a peaceful manner.
For these bilateral meetings, would you be able to tell us with whom he'll be meeting with? Or would they be UN officials or civilian leadership? Or
I will see if there's any more detail we can spell out for all of you.
and does this meeting indicate that there's now a picking up of momentum for re-executing six-party talks?
This is just ongoing consultations with our partners on these important issues.
North Korea? Sorry. Do you have any update on Kenneth Bay and his status, his well-being, and possibly any efforts to help get him out?
I know we were venturing to get you an update on that, and my apologies on that. Obviously, we remain focused on securing his release. We have remaining concerns about his health. We are in close contact with his family on a very regular basis. I will check to see if we can send a quick update on last contacts out.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, follow up on Torian's question. Why New York? Why are you meeting in New York? And I ask this because usually when you have a Washington-Pyongyang direct communication, you do it through New York. So are you laying the groundwork for future diplomacy? Are the North Koreans being involved in any of the talks?
I don't have any more details to lay out for you. We'll see if there's anything more we can share.
A couple of days ago,
Sure.
The South Korean director for the North Korean issues noted Japan and United States and South Korea is going to pursue the variety method of dialogue in order to resume the six-party talks, which means I don't know exactly what the variety method of dialogue means. Is it kind of New York talks and these kind of
I'm not sure which announcement you're referring to.
not announcement, just
Reports?
They talk to the report.
I think, regardless of those reports, our approach remains the same, which is that we are in close consultation with our six-party partners. Obviously, there are steps North Korea would need to take. The ball remains in their court. Nothing has changed in that regard.
Nothing has changed. U.S. position is nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Any other topics? All right, Joe, go ahead.
Sorry, I should have mentioned this
No,
back,
no problem.
back when we were talking about Iran, but there was something that was said in Vienna, and I just wondered if this was your understanding of it, by Foreign Minister Zarif, that he believes that the next talks to be held in May, mid-May, will get down to the drafting part of the actual agreement. And I wondered if that was your understanding as well on the US side.
That is something that we have conveyed from our end as well.
Okay. So you're actually going to be putting things down on paper with the idea of working towards an agreement by July still?
Well, yes, that remains the goal. Again, this doesn't change the difficulty of the issues, the challenge of the issues, but yes, it has been confirmed from our side as well that is the timeline.
So from mid-May? You're not. I mean, are your experts already working on it to present something in mid-May, or are you going to start from mid-May doing the actual writing down?
Well, I think the way that it's been communicated is that the drafting will begin in May.
Two very brief ones. One, I believe that yesterday was the third round of talks between you and the French on the SNCF compensation for Holocaust deportations.
Yep.
How's that going? Is there any progress?
I'm not aware of any specific progress to report. I know we put out a statement the other evening about this. This is a process that we feel is the most effective way to address. There have been some legislation in a couple of states attempting to address, so we're recommending to everyone to
But the
work through this
meeting did
process.
happen as planned yesterday?
Yes, that's my
Do you know
understanding.
where that was? Was it here or in France?
I don't have any details of that. I can check and see if
And
there's
then
more to report.
my other one is that
So can I
Senator...
just ask one clarification on that? Is it with you directly negotiating with Paris on this? Any agreement for compensation would be paid by whom? The rail firm in question or by the governments in question?
Well, my understanding, I'd have to check on that level of detail, Joe. I mean, my understanding is the issue here is there's U.S. subsidiaries of the French company. So in terms of who would pay it, I'd have to check with the teams working on it. I don't have that level of detail.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
I believe the statement that was released about that a couple of days ago mentioned that the legislation that's being considered in both Maryland and New York is unproductive for negotiations. Why would that be unproductive?
Because we feel the best means of addressing this is through the negotiations that we're having with the French.
And my last one was just on the Senators McCain and Menendez have come out today with a proposed bill that would remove the terrorism designation under the Patriot Act for several Kurdish groups. Are you familiar with this at all?
I'm not. I haven't seen that.
Okay, could you look into it? And
Sure.
then
Happy
like
to.
to know what the administration thinks of.
Okay.
Jen, do you have any reaction to the Senate adaptation of the Armenian genocide bill yesterday?
I don't have any additional comment beyond what I stated yesterday. Go ahead.
Just two quick things. I think you were asked about the media reports that the Israelis are going to start withholding some of the tax revenues. Did you say that because you hadn't seen anything official on that, you couldn't comment? Are the media reports in and of themselves unhelpful?
Yeah, I think I said that as well.
Oh, did you? Okay, great. And then last thing,
Wait, you said that the media reports were unhelpful?
No, I said the content, obviously, of the media reports was unhelpful. If this is true, yes.
okay. And then second, on Ukraine, I don't think you were asked, but forgive me if you were.
Sure.
Lavrov is quoted as having said that Russia wants legal guarantees of Ukraine's neutrality.
I've seen that, yes.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, our view is that sovereign countries make their own decisions about in relation to what other countries and what organizations they may have relationships with, or they may seek to join. Now, as we all know, the legitimate government of Ukraine has been clear that they have no plans to pursue a NATO membership at this time. But regardless, all of these decisions are up to the government of Ukraine and the people of Ukraine, and that's where we think they should lie.
Right. So there's no reason why anybody except the government of Ukraine, if it chose to, should give anybody guarantees about its neutrality.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
On Syria, the opposition has said that the regime has used the chemical weapons in the last few days. Do you have any confirmation?
We've seen those reports you're referring to. We don't have any information to corroborate those claims at this time. We certainly take all reports of alleged chemical weapons use seriously, which is why we're working with the OPCW and UN to remove and destroy serious chemical weapons. But again, we have no information to corroborate those claims at this point.
And what does it mean if these reports are accurate?
I'm not going to speculate on that. Obviously, we don't have information to corroborate them at this time.
Just back to the Ukraine Tetrad conference.
Yes.
Yesterday, I think you were asked, or someone was asked about the Russians wanting representatives of the ethnic Russians and Russian-speaking minorities from the East to be involved in the delegation that goes to wherever this meeting is, whenever it is. Did you have a response to that, or do you think that? Are you amenable to that, or do you think that the representative of the Ukraine delegation to the Tetrad talks should be just the Ukrainian government?
We
as you
think
see
that
it
the
now.
Ukraine government represents all of Ukraine.
So you see no need for people for people that the Russians might think, ethnic Russians or Russian speakers who have an interest, though, in what goes on in Ukraine. You don't see the need for them to be there.
Well, for this particular, no,
But
because
at this meeting,
at this meeting, the government of Ukraine will represent all of Ukraine, and they've taken steps to be inclusive, to protect minorities, Russian speakers. That's the most effective way we feel they can do that.
Are they representing Crimea also, from your point of view?
Absolutely.
What about like a separate discussion of all of the groups in Ukraine? That's one thing that from the Foreign Ministry has said that Secretary Kerry has promised them, like a separate parallel thing where they would all have their input.
I'm not sure what that's a reference to. Broadly speaking, we've continued to encourage the government of Ukraine to be as inclusive as possible, to include all components from all communities. Even the Prime Minister's trip to Donetsk is an example of reaching out to Eastern Ukraine, and they have delivered on that. The government has, so we've seen them put that to action. Thanks, everyone.